All right. So this vlog's called The List. Not so sure I should make it, but I'm gonna. It is February 21st. I have exactly 3 days before my paycheck. I have 2 cats, a new roommate, no boyfriend, but a friend with benefits who is my ex who I'm living with. And I have a lot of issues. Um so this is called the list because I'm going to go over all the problems that I have had in dealing with my traumatic past, my fairly normal, having to grow up um, issues, the deep pain, the common pain, and where I'm at now. So, nobody really knows how to deal with deep pain. It's one of those things where it's luck of the draw. If the world were completely different, it wouldn't exist because it's the kind of thing that you don't want to deal with. It's the kind of thing that nobody really knows how. It wouldn't exist if somebody was at my door. If all these other traumatic things stopped happening in the world. So my issues at about, I think I'm going to go with 12 years of age because that encompasses all the traumatic and still leaves me at a kind of fresh, no peer pressure kind of thing. So 12 years old was a rough age for me. I was beginning to compulsively eat just the worst foods because I didn't know, but compulsively eat like Cheese Whiz, grilled cheese every like twice, 3 times a day. I was sleeping as much as possible. I was avoiding problems. I was freaking out when those problems were addressed. Um, Destroying things. I was a little violent. I think in particular with anyone who was super close to me. I would get violent depending on the situation. It was not like I was just aggressive towards everyone all the time. It was stimulated. Um, I would lie, I would steal, I would from people, from family. Uh, God, where was I starting with that? I had an issue with the internet. I was frequently looking at things that were not appropriate for my age, frequently baiting people on chat rooms, and not even baiting per se. It was, to me, that was the objective, was to bait them and to I didn't know what a troll was back then, but that was basically my intention, that or to learn, to meet interesting people, and I was rather stupid about some of it. Uh, I had an issue with food, all that stuff. I hadn't had sex yet. I hadn't cut myself, but I was suicidal in thought. I was suicidal in thought and severely depressed. I had one super bad habit where I would hold it in because I just, like, if I had to go to the bathroom, I would hold it in because I didn't want to leave my room because of whoever, Gary was home that day, or it just began to feel like something that I had control over. And I guess it's fairly common to become excited by that, in a way, because it's physically stimulating. See, and that's embarrassing, but I have to discuss this because these problems somewhat came out of nowhere. I think something like that, I can look back now and say it was about a control, but I don't know where it came from. I had an issue before that with being or acting out sexually, which was a problem because of my age. But that quickly went away. Um, so I had all these problems, and my mother dealt with the freaking out and the depression by trying to talk about it. And sometimes it was not very effective because she was the main person to blame. I had an extreme problem with blaming everything on everyone else, and in some ways that was justifiable. But at the same time, I was incapable of dealing with my own problems. So that graduated. All these deep pains graduated with me. I was freaking out a little bit less. Um, no, all of it I dragged with me into the group homes. And the group homes came out of being incapable of not freaking out on my brother and sister because I always wanted my own way because of the excuse I had to take advantage or guilt my mother into giving me more leeway or whatever because Gary was beating me and she's the one who kept him around. So that deep pain, all of it's deep traumatic pain stimulated from this, that, and the other excuse, and legitimate as they may be, I went into the group home with the presumption that I was the problem. I was the psycho. I was a really, really bad kid. And I had problems, but I would not say that anybody would call me a bad kid. I was just an averagely, problematic child. Considering, especially, but I mean, without considering just my day to day behavior, I was not a good kid, but I was not a terrible kid. I was not a psychopath. Um, but I met quite a few when I got into the group home. I met people who cut their bodies up in just slices, scars everywhere. I met people who who were psychopaths, who had no issues with drugs and depression and any of that stuff. They just had anger issues and maybe they weren't psychosociopaths, but they were incapable of seeing why they weren't the one who was right. And they were quite a bit older than me at the time, 16, all of that. Well, not quite a bit. I suppose that's only a couple of years, but I was a rather naive child in a lot of ways that I did not expect because I had to deal with so many whatever. I don't know why. Maybe I would have always been naive in a way. So, to add to all of my issues, I did now have some perspective. I did improve immediately after the second group home. I spent 3 months at each, and the second group home was really bad. It was just really bad. None of it was good, but that one, I became a native girl. I became her bitch. I was her little hoe. Well, she enticed black guys towards us so that they would, anybody really, but in particular, she seemed to have a thing for black guys. So they would feed her alcohol and take me off. Um, so added to all of these issues, I developed a sort of perspective where stealing from people isn't okay. I never stopped stealing from my mother, but I did stop stealing from my brother and sister and everybody else. I wouldn't deal with that issue until about. I never dealt with that issue. I always hated my mother. In some intrinsic way where it wasn't like I didn't love her. It was just, I just blamed her for everything, whether I liked it or not. And since she's been out of my life, I haven't stolen from anyone. It's just not in me to do. Um, so stealing was an issue. It's not an issue anymore. I voluntarily do things that I should not do in order to gain, more food. In particular, it's always been food, or if I can't afford to get something so that I can fix something around the apartment. I do it out of a necessity, at least now, and I'm slowly but surely getting rid of that as we become more stable and my other habits disappear. But I picked up compulsive sex. I picked up cigarettes. I picked up drinking without any semblance of control, or because I just no control. I would binge as soon as I got to a certain point. It was just too easy. Um, I picked up weed. I picked up cutting a little bit. And see, that one was more experimental. I think it was never really about the attention, but it was in that I knew tattoos were a thing. Everybody likes a little bit of attention on themselves. In fact, that's what we crave. That's what we need to some extent or another in order to function. So for me, cutting was just about expressing the artistic bits. And yes, I did once write I hate dad, and I wanted to write I hate mom, but I put dad instead into my left arm. And you can't see it today. I mean, there's other scars, but it was never a major issue up until after I turned 21. I started burning myself and stuff. Um, and it was always with the intent of, like burning myself for some sort of symbolism along here with 8 dots to represent my version of the elements and, light, dark, and all of that stuff. Uh, So that, for me, it completely metastasized into something artistic and expressive and about wearing who I am on the outside so that people are aware, so that they don't necessarily have to ask me in order to figure out who I am. Or, the general way that I act, maybe not even who I am so much. Compulsive sex, that I did not know how to say no. No. After the first guy telling me, we went on one date, we made out, we went on another date, we had sex. And I mean, it was also very new to me. I called and I called and I called, and 3 days later he picked up and he said, "Oh, yeah, guys are assholes." Like, so that was my first time, outside, like voluntarily. And it just kind of never stopped. I was asked so many times, and I did say no with these black guys and the one white guy, and I said no repetitively, but if I would have even the slightest bit of the alcohol, it would just go completely out the window after a certain point, or I wouldn't have the alcohol, and they would ask so many times in order to get them to shut the hell up. I would say yes. So that one has been probably my bigger and biggest issue as far as being able to deal with common pain. It's the same with the overeating. Overeating was a way to make sure that I was still moving. I was still nowadays it's because it tastes good, because I'm supposed to eat, and because at least it keeps me moving, driving towards something. I'm not depressed as chronically as I was. And you know what? We all go through that really down time, that really just, ugh, craving a cigarette so bad. All right, gum. Gum or tabs? These ones have 1 milligram. So smoking, even though I'm an asthmatic. Peer pressure. I was never really a say no personality anyway. That's common problems. It's common pain, the stupid mistakes that I've made because I'm not very smart about how I react to things, the naivete or the wanting to believe in the best, or, just it doesn't take me much convincing when it comes to, there it is. Oh, nicotine. You are a horrible bitch. Ugh. It makes me want to cough. Like it tastes like it should make me cough. Like it should make me cough. Why? Why did I ever start? Mm. So we are. I never was addicted to drinking, but I was addicted to stimulants. I was never addicted to sex. I guess I'm addicted to sex now more than I was back then. It was just more or less I didn't know. I didn't know how to react. I mean, it's emotional rape, the things that go on when you ask and you ask and you ask, and you're not in an environment where you have any control or any ability to call out for help. I mean, what do? You just leave? I could have. I should have. It was just never that clear cut. Ugh, gross. So that's the list. I don't know what I weigh. I am overweight. I am slightly into the obese section, which, 30 pounds, that's a little small to be calling somebody obese if they're 30 pounds overweight. That's a little bit, that's not, you look like you're going to have a heart attack. That's not, when the possibility is that you can weigh literally a ton or 600 pounds, I don't think calling somebody 30 pounds overweight obese is a healthy way to stimulate them in the right way. I don't think it's accurate. When there are people who literally cannot be under 500 pounds because of the way their genetics have made them, because of the way that they are built, because of whatever the actual excuses are. I'm sorry, but that one girl, Tessa, she is beautiful. She does not have like unnatural looking wrinkles where the chins are. Like it's smoother. It just, there's something about the way, like even in the natural photos, the way her skin is that makes me go, you're never gonna get under like 300, are you? And so, I mean, there's a whole new classification, and then there's people like Eugene Yakuni. How are you alive? You are 60 what? 70 pounds? That's the size of a small child. Or like a small child, a 5-year-old. When both extremes exist and people are alive and surviving it, we maybe want to consider how this works. However, I mean, the BMI is supposed to help the average people figure out, or, the people who are still within the scale, that it is not something that is integrally wrong with them, that they can come back to this middle ground. So that's my list. I have defeated the things with, the stealing. I still steal from stores out of necessity. And more often than not, I don't. So I've defeated that. I haven't defeated the smoking thing. I haven't defeated the weight gain. I haven't gotten extraordinarily ambitious. But I have proved that I can. I just haven't proved that I have any stamina with it. I'm not depressed. I'm not cutting myself. I get tattoos. I've worked through the deep pain, maybe not the abandonment and trust issues and how that sometimes comes out in my reactions or the choices that I make in, there's a word for it, but it's not going to come to me. In my choices. It doesn't come out in my choices. That's not the word. It doesn't. Um, I have managed. It doesn't come out in my choices as far as the right thing to do. I am not a psychopath. I'm not over. I'm still overreactive, but I am not violent. I am not. I prefer to sleep with one person. I just crave sex all the time. Like I'm a daily kind of person, That's I've worked through what is normal and unnormal about me, and I've used the deep pain to relate to others and become a decent person. Try and change the world. I mean, this is my list. These are things that are personal and huge and come from somewhere that, yes, might be an excuse, but ultimately, if I do not do something about, they will rule my life. They will change the way, they will influence the way people react to me, the way I go about life, and how successful I am. People can get successful a number of ways rather. Seth MacFarlane's show Family Guy kind of taught me how to laugh right in the face of fear, right in the face of the most horrible things because of how it functions. If you cannot laugh it off, if you cannot emotionally deal enough with topics like incest and molestation and anorexia and being fat, and if you cannot look at the situation of how complicated politics are and just laugh your ass off, not dismiss it, not dismissively, but laugh at just how bad it all is. If you can't do that, you can't deal and you can't learn how to use the deep pain or the common pain, the things that we all go through with. I mean, I had self-esteem issues. I did not understand what people were talking about when I was 8 years old in grade school and all the other girls were asking me how much my car and my house cost. I didn't care. I was dealing with real things. I didn't understand why they were so mean to me, then all of a sudden nice to me like I was part of their clique, but I went on with it and learned to despise it by the time I was 14. I learned how to isolate myself and figure out how useless some of the common pain really is. It's not that you're not allowed to have it. It's not that you should go out of your way to not feel these things because they are not valid until they concern you. And they will not cause you to be successful unless you use it with the outside perspective of this is just pain. This is just something. If you cannot understand that everybody goes through self-esteem issues, you're not going to be able to deal with them. You have to be able to put yourself outside of the pain and learn to channel it into other things that are useful and painful, like exercise or, stopping a painful thing like smoking. You need perspective, unemotional, detached perspective, and common pain is the perfect way to go about that, but it is also as useless. It's useless to feel. It's useless to indulge. Deep pain, laugh. You just have to laugh. Laugh and keep the smile on while you decimate it, while you dissect it and break it apart and use the pieces in order to border off what is normal and not normal. Now, I'm only saying that self-esteem issues are not to be indulged or felt like as much as possible because the deep pain exists until we are in an era where at least those who there are people who live normal lives and they go towards the darker side. They end up somewhere deep, dark, and horrible by choice. And they love it. That needs to be organized so that there is a middle ground. That, I'm sorry, but there is no use for child. There's no use for it. Zero. Same with anorexia. That is what I mean, is there's a deep pain here that other people use more deep pain in order to perpetuate. And then there's common pain that is indulged to the point that it becomes extremely harmful. And it's just not deep pain. It does not put you there. It does not actually put you there. You put yourself through pain. And that is a choice. That is not something that you can or that any one person can say cannot be in existence ever. But to perpetuate it where it is actually painful on others, that's where the line is. And the existence of deep pain or heading towards the darker negative sides, it needs to borderline the majority. And the majority needs to be good, common good, or extraordinary. It just does. So that's it. That's my list. That's where I'm going with it. That's what I believe. That's this, that, and the other thing. So tomorrow today I'm going to figure out all my stretches, um, figure out exactly how much I can do in 20 minutes as far as hard cardio and at what pace. Uh, and then I'm going to look up dance moves and I'm going to show you what I am going to be doing for the next ever, hopefully, and how that progresses, how I lose the weight, how I use eugenia and anorexia and past pain in order to keep motivating myself towards a better future. So that's that. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope my embarrassing tales make you feel a little bit better, and my deep pain makes you feel better about either your common pain and how you deal with it, or it makes you angry and you decide to do something with that anger, because anger is just another form of pain. And if it's aimed at a common good, then I guess it doesn't really. I don't really know where I'm going with this. I hope my deep pain has at least inspired you to turn it into something good, like I have attempted to do most of my life. All right, guys. Much love. Ooh, much greater than love. Much love. Bye.